Hello. Whew. Another day, another stream. I realize I don't have any water, so I'm gonna have to go get some at some point. I hope my sound is working. We'll just jump right back into where we stopped yesterday. We're not starting anything new. Hello, hello, hello. Hello again. Yeah, we'll just go back in. Good. Well, good timing, I guess. Consistency, on my side, consistency is going to be key. If I stick with it, it's going to become a habit. Being on time. All right. Let's get started. So, okay, let's just summarize where we're at. MessagePack is, I don't even know what the word is. It's not really a protocol. It's more of a format for storing data with multiple tabs supported. It should be broadly compatible with JSON as well, which I think is its one of its benefits. And I was thinking about it, and this is kind of like a similar discussion. The similar discussion with C strings or null terminated strings, and the ones that store their length in a header. Because if we look at a C string, you've got to like read everything until you find like a sentinel value that tells you that's the size. And with a string that has like the data at the beginning, you just read the beginning. You don't need to go really far in. With JSON, it's the same. Like JSON, you kind of need to read the whole thing until you reach a sentinel value. So if you have a JSON object, you need to find the matching closing bracket. Same thing with arrays, and kind of same thing with strings, anyways. Because when you have an opening, when you have a double quote that's open, you need to seek the matching double quote that's closed. Even numbers are like that. Like you don't really know how big the number is going to be until you read all of it. With MessagePack, it's actually all in the header. And they have both like advantages and drawback. For the for what I'm doing right now, it actually makes it somewhat easier to like read value and parse them without having to just do a lot of seeking through the thing. But at the same time, the way I want to implement my iterator makes it a little bit difficult. I wonder if I could illustrate that. Does this work? Yeah. So let me just pull out my my thing, which seems to be still working. Oh, that's just a selection. Let's do this. I should be careful because this is going to start. Oh, I just realized this is going to start writing on things. So MessagePack, we're going to get something like this, right? Which is going to be, I've got a kind of like a header right there, which is going to say 0x and then, you know, blah, or say B or something like that. Like just, it doesn't matter. This is going to say you're a map. That's great, right? And then inside there, or maybe as like a second parameter, and we're going to illustrate it as a second parameter, you're going to get the number like 2. Now this is going to say items, right? So how many items the map has, which basically translates to 4 objects, which is just 2 times it's not really 2 times, it's more like 2 it's like 2 pair of key values, pair of KV. Impossible for me to write something properly, but because this is software, I should be able to do this, right? Boink. There you go. That's a bit better. It's not that much better, it's a bit better. But the problem now is that this is kind of like a ... And I don't know where the end is. Is the end here? Is the end here? If I want to say, I actually don't care about what's inside that map and I want to skip to the end, I want to go all the way to the end and say, I don't know. Unless I read this one, this item, which is going to tell me its length. And because it's a key value, I'm going to have to at least read the next one which again, this is a dot 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 there, I don't even know the length. I'm going to read this one, and because there's two, I'm actually going to read 4 of them. But if this one is also a map, I don't know the length. What is this? What is this length? What is the, don't know anything until I read until the end. So this is this is the kind of the C string conundrum in a way. Well, like it's great to manipulate. You can move and you can subtract pointer to characters and know the distance between two things, but you're kind of stuck. So thinking about that, I thought it was not that great, but it's a pick your poison type situation, and I just want to implement something here. So what I'm going to do is implement some sort of strlen for the message pack. So you would basically give it an item, and it would just scan through everything to figure out how long the item actually is, which means that when you do a when you call next, you should be able to just say, oh, go to the next one by like going through it. And I think that to speed up some stuff for use cases where someone scans the objects and it reads all of them, every time there's an strlen that is done on an object, I could actually cache the calculated length in the object, because it's unlikely to well, it's difficult because then it could change. The caching could become a separate thing. But anyways, let's continue. So what we had actually was kind of working, right? We had a make test, if I remember well, and we were at a stage where it doesn't handle numbers, so it reads a 0 and it exits, which is just fine. That's kind of like what we want. But I did put in a hack in next, where I'm just adding the number, the items count, and the items count is pretty much this value, which in the case of strings is going to be how many characters, aka bytes. Great. In the case of the boolean that we read, is going to be set to 1, so it's going to skip 1 byte. Great. As soon as you do map or numbers, it's not going to work anymore. Actually, numbers, I could just still set it to 1 because there's 1 number in there. But maps, the items count is not going to be a value that I can use. What I need is in here, instead of this, I need a strlen or itemlen, so that I can skip through that. Yeah, that's the only caveat. I'm trying to think. So when you do next, because their length are not uniform, like every one of them is going to be, so basically you want to get the current items. Okay, yeah, that should be fine. I'm not going to start with that though, because that's a bit of a big thing to start with. I am going to start with little warming up exercise, where I'm just going to implement a few more types, even though they're not, actually being used. I want to flesh out this thing there, which is actually not super amazing. You know what? I may actually start with making define for these. Define MP, and this is going to have to be this I might not be able to do that. Okay, I might have to not do it, because I realized that for C2 and C3 I should be able to do it, but this one A0 is actually, I just want to check the A, not the other one, so I may have to keep it like that for now. Okay, let's put it at the top, and we'll say if. I'm going to load up the spec, and I'm going to start, like I already got fix map, I'm going to do positive fix int, and then I'll do a bunch as I go down, and then when I get tired, or if I see a pattern emerging that I can do something with, like an X macro, for example, I'll do something. Basically, I just want to check that this one is easy because it's the first bit. So if I say, and is that the only one? That's literally the only one, right? So if the first bit is 0, then you're a number. So I just need to do end 0 be 1 and then 7 zeros, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, which, to be honest, I'm going to write as 1 moved by 7. So if this is a 0, then I know that we're in the numbers territory, right? So here I'm going to say item type, and because there are floats as well, so this one's actually going to be an int, mp type int, which doesn't exist because it needs to be defined here. Okay. Int. Next, items count is going to be easy. Type items count 1, and item next. I think this one, because it's a fix, is literally the next byte, so it should be easy. So I'm reading a message there. Is this your goal? Write content length value in message. I mean, yes, technically. But this is pretty much what the MessagePack format is, except that it's not literally just you've got the value and then you've got the rest. Like, for example, the int has like different ways of being encoded. So this one could just, depending on like the first byte, there could be extra bytes to read. So there's like a bit more complexity in it to some extent. Yeah, should be able to do that. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Okay, that's the int. Int map array. Let's do array because it's going to be an interesting one. Array. Okay. I should be able to do this. And then now we're looking for, so array is going to start with a 9. So I still mask the same numbers, but array is going to be 9. And actually, you know what? I do want to do this and put the 9 as the second one. So this one's going to be array. Keep the other one. And then how many is going to be the same logic, I think, because you just read those values. So it's a fixed array. But there's also array 16, array 32. So there's a bunch of other ones. Which these start with different numbers, which we'll do after. So items count is correct, and the next is correct as well. So these are actually very similar in the way they are calculated. The only thing that's different is 0.9 there. Array. What do we have? Fixed string. Actually, string is an interesting one. So this, I feel like I've done the string already. Yes, I did the string already. Let's do nil, and then we'll stop there. Nil is literally 0x C0, so nil should be very easy. And nil is after the string, so I'll put it here. I'm going to use the same wording that they use because I think it makes sense, and it's right after string, so I should be able to just, actually this one's going to be easy because I literally just need to do 0C0, and I'm going to copy this, paste it here, and say nil item count 1. Okay, great, I've got something there. Now what's interesting, because I know this is an int, if I run this, now I should get a different type of error, which is obviously going to be a bit more aggressive, and it's because when I do init, actually it is init here. Ooh, I actually don't know what the error is. Init 65 in here. Ah, yes, so I've reached the end and I'm probably iterating one too many times, or I've got a next value which is not in the right place. Next is data. So let me see what I do in here, right? I just do while iter next. Now the thing is while iter next is that I should return false if it's the size. Yeah. So it shouldn't go one too many. Let me see, do I print the right thing there? Schema, and then it fails. It's buffer overflow. So it could be that in here, next, items count, which I know is wrong, but for the current use case should be correct. So when I do next, after reading schema, schema is going to be, imprint those. And we're going to say iter item.items count. Let's try that. So it is printing 1. So it's actually, it's trying to read beyond the number, which I'm not happy. Let me just print it here. Else if item.item, I need to fix this item.item, mp type int, then I can just printf int. I don't need to print the stuff just yet, right? So let's see. Yeah, so I'm printing the int, and then after that, right, it is trying mp iter next, which at that stage it should have been like, no, the size is in there. But now I'm actually thinking the size is set to 4 as far as I know. D and D and iter pause iter size, unless I've done it wrong. 0 1 2 3. I guess I do want to like stop early because I can't move beyond the actual number. So in reality, I iterate 3 times because the first iteration is there. So I need to do a -1, which does make sense. It's just that in my mind, I'm like, I need 4 iterations. So I need to make sure it actually stops at 4. Well, actually I need 3 iterations because when you initialize the iterator, it points to the first one. So I'm already set up there. Right, so now I'm sorted. So now I actually read that first item. Obviously I'm not reading the int value, which I can do right now. Should be pretty simple, right? We've got read string, read bool. So it's going to be a little bit more tricky, but like you can do read int. Yeah, and then the value is going to be uint32t for now. We'll have to see how we do all values. And then the value is going to be the data at 0, and I just need to nullify the first byte, which means I need everything except the first byte to be 0. So if I do this, that should give me a number, and just for making sure that things are correct, I will cast it uint32t. Okay, so let's just have fun with this. Yank this, paste it there, delete, and do a D here, and this becomes a uint32t. val stays there, and read int 0. Now, if I go back here and the schema, I replace it with 127. Actually, 127 is probably not the best idea. I know that it's going to be 7 bytes, so it can't be a huge number, but if I put 56 there, which to be honest, yeah, if I put 56 in here, and then if I remember to do oh, I don't know if I have it. Don't know if I have it in there. I'm gonna try to remember it by memory. I think I can easily do that. Pipe xxd-r-ps into data 01 msg. Yeah. Make test 56. Okay, so this is actually reading properly. Now it should be observed that if I go, so let me think, the protocol says these values are going to be your binary. So actually this is a byte. If it was a unsigned byte, I would be able to put up to 255. But because 1 bit is reserved, I actually only have 7 bits to store my thing, which is going to be 2 to the power of 7 minus 1 is going to be the maximum value I can store without extending the thing, so 127. So if I was to go here and say 129, we can see it. So 7 is correct, but as soon as I go to 8, you can see 1 byte being added at the end. And then it switches to CC. And if I look at the spec, CC should be something that's right there, which is uint8, and it's a fixed value. So in here, if I was to switch and put CC, I would start getting some garbage stuff. Now, I've got 2 paths I can take from there, right? One, I change my types to match exactly the ones in the spec. So that when you read them, I know exactly what to do. And then when I iterate through the item, when I create the item, I can store ahead of time what type it is. 2, I keep them as more generic types like int and maybe uint and all those. And then when I do a read value, I have to reread the header byte to figure out exactly what to do in that situation. And I think I'm going to go with option 2, because that way I'm only reading the extra bytes when I don't need when I need to read the contents. So that should be easy. So this should work, but this should also catastrophically fail if I was to try to plug it in with something like the messages that I get back from OBS. So what I'm going to do actually to test it out is I'm going to go back one thing. I'm going to say I'm going to run the client, so it's going to should switch the UI. Make sure I come back here and switch it back, and then I should be able to literally grab the hello that I'm getting here. So that's the data that I'm getting here. Copy that, and then to slap it into the in here. Now another thing I could have done is change my program there and switch from WebSocket to MessagePack, and in doing so, I could have just, instead of printing it to a console, I could have just written it to a file, and then I would have gotten the files. But I'm going to use this instead, and this is going to be the next one I'm going to try. So if I come here, I should be able to do. I'm going to write it because it's almost going to be simpler than. Than not writing it, and I'm actually going to put it into a different one, which is going to be I'm going to call it obs hello.msg. Okay. So test1 is going to stay test1. I'm going to keep it there for convenience. I am going to make this a what's the problem? Unsigned. Yeah, so because my buffer is not unsigned, I'm going to cast it. Okay, it's still working. But I'm going to do a void test2, and it's going to be pretty similar to this. But I'm just going to use it to play with the other file, which is OBS hello. Now stuff is going to probably not go right. Okay, it worked-ish, but then obviously it stopped when it didn't find something. I mean, actually, it's so I still have some printf somewhere that I need to remove. This one. So map, it saw something called D, and then it saw a number called that is 100 in there. That's a bit weird because I mean D is correct, but inside D there's actually another map. But I think what happened is there's another map in there, and instead of reading it as a map, actually I don't know what that 100 is. What is that 100 number? It's not a value that's there. It saw D, and then it saw that it's a map, and then it tried to read it incorrectly. Let's see what it would have done. If the root tab is a map, it is. It recurses, and then when it recurses, it goes, yes, this is a string. The string is D, which is correct. And then it does a next. If it's a bool, which I don't think it would be in this instance, or if it's an int, which I don't think it will be in this instance, it skips it, and then it just iterates again, in which case the next one might not be a string because it's a map, and I guess next didn't work properly, and it only moved by one byte, and it moved until it saw a 0, and then it just said that's the number 100. So I think this is where it got it wrong. So to make this work, I do need to get started in implementing, unfortunately or fortunately, void mp item get end or length. I'm going to try to copy strlen in this instance. Why not? Struct mp item. Now this one is going to be I'm going to try to avoid making a recursion because I may need to recurse, but I'm going to make it as a loop as much as possible, and you'll get a uint32t back, maybe even as to be honest a size t would probably be a good idea. So what this function should do, you get the item, and if it is one of the basic items, you should be able to just return whatever that length is. So if you got something like a boolean, a number, or whatever, you should be able to just like read and say that's your size or your length. If it's an array or a map, you're going to need to recurse into it and then calculate the size of each item inside, right? And if the item inside is also a map or something, you have to kind of like recurse in a way. But I think I'll do it by keeping it flat, by having just an iterator that I move down. So I may have a loop that just says that's the current one and do something like that. I don't know if I can redo that or if I have to recurse. I may do recurse first because it's easier, and then see how I feel about that. Now the problem that I have is that if I reach something that's an int, I'm not necessarily going to know the end of that int unless I read its first byte to determine if it's a fixed int or int 8, int 16, int 32, in which case I can then know how many bytes I need to return, as like how much do you need to move. But this is also the exact same logic that I'm going to need for I'm going to need the exact same logic for reading an int, for example. So that would be a bit wasteful to have to do that twice. So I can either store it in the item, I can just like read it ahead of time and store it in the item, so that every non-variable length type of object knows ahead of time immediately its size, which simplifies the length calculation. Or I have another set of function that gets me the internal type, and I use that in here and when I read the stuff. But actually starting to think that storing the length of those simpler types might not be a bad idea. It's only for like, realistically it's array and map that's going to cause issues. That's the only two, right? Because all of the others I can immediately know their length by just reading just a few things without having to go inside. Let me check all the types we have there, because if that's the case, I may vary like most of the cases, like there's gonna be tons of those more basic types, but you got array and map and array and map. These are like the only containers in a way. So I'm going to do that then. What I'm going to do is, to simplify, I'm going to set that an item also has, so it's interesting because items count is only going to be relevant for oh, you know what I could use? Union. That would be the perfect. And then uint32t size, right? Because the reality is I can't pre-calculate the size of an array because I have to go inside and check what's inside. But for an array, I would have an items count. And then for a number, I would not have an items count because there's no items, but I would have a size. And that way I can just calculate all of those ahead of time. And the same thing for a map. So I think if I do that, I store it in one place because they can never be on at the same time, and I save a little time. My thinking was to use items count as, because I was kind of using it as like saying, oh, if you were a boolean, you have one item, and I was kind of using it as its size, which I'm kind of doing right now, but I kind of don't want to do that. It's better to have a clear name. So here, what I can do instead is, this one is very explicitly 1. This one is very explicitly items count, and this one is going to be size for sure. So in bytes, size. So that should simplify my my stuff. So now calculating the length gets a little bit easier. In which case I can say if item. So I kind of want to say, oh, are you a this type of items? Oh, I'm really tempted to do something dumb. I'm going to do it. It's not really dumb, but I really want to do it. I think that's going to be great. You'll see what I mean hopefully soon. How am I going to do this? I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to go to the end. I can't go to the end because I've got stuff at the end. I'm going to have to do it manually. I am going to move my map and array to manually set their value for their enum to a big number, and the rest can be 0, 1, 2, 3. Why not, right? And in doing so, I can literally say that if the type is bigger than type map, for example, then I can just do something like that. I'm also going to do something else that's stupid, but not really. I'm going to put one which is 99, and oh wait, no, even better than that. I'm going to make a define and say MP is container type. I wanted to do something where I just like I define and kind of an alias for map, because that's the first one in that list, and say if you're bigger than that. But I think it's better if I do it this way. Here's going to be x is if it's bigger or equal to MP type map, then that's what I'm going to have. And here the only thing I'm missing is value, and this is going to be value, right? And then I should have just this one that causes an issue, value, which I don't need to use. And then finally I've got I'm here, right? Great. So here I can make it much simpler by just saying if item type, and I can say MP type is container. I don't even know if that's the right thing. Is container type. Right, if you're a container type, you need to do something, otherwise I can very simply return item size. Hello. I wanted to -1, I shouldn't do -1. I don't know if warrior is a great description. It would imply that I'm defeating C, while C is more likely to defeat me than I am to defeat it. I am at best a challenger. So let me think there. If I have a container type, then I want to recurse, and it doesn't matter if it's an array or a map, I'll just recurse and iterate through them. And for each of them, I'll just call the length. So that should be quite easy, right? I can do a struct MP iter, which I'm going to call iterator, sure. And I can do MP iter recurse of item and my iterator. It's possible that I've put them, so these are going to be dependent on each other. Not really, but this is where I need to start on a forward declaration for some stuff. I think there are more people writing C than it seems, but the people writing C don't spend their time on the internet shouting on the rooftop that they're writing C. And there's nothing wrong with that. I started with PHP and doing like web, and there was a time in my life where I was like, I am, web, and that's it. And to be honest, it could have stayed like that if the web didn't devolve into just the wild, wild west of it's just a rubbish place. And I'm not talking about the development, I'm talking like the internet in itself, like just browsing the web is not that enjoyable anymore. It's just a lot of rubbish. Yeah, low level, it's easier to get away from a lot of the AI noise when you're further away from the web, because almost everything that is made vibe coded, if you want, is going to be a web thing, because that's the type of people that will enjoy vibe coding are the people that would have enjoyed web deving, if that makes sense. I think that's, yeah, you can vibe code in C. We can do some. That's fun. It's kind of okay. Actually, C is more. It's actually probably a little bit better to vibe code than some other languages, because C is going to have a huge data set to start with. But on top of that, a lot of other languages are just C-like JavaScript in its syntax, maybe not in its writing style, is extremely C. You know, the way you declare stuff. I mean, obviously there's the function keyword that's not there, but like when I was taught languages, the C-like languages was just, or like the C-like syntax, I should say, was used a lot, and people were saying like, this is a C-like syntax, and I think it was just, to be honest, there's a very little that I can think of which don't have a C-like syntax. Objective-C does not have a C-like syntax, but like, who wants to write Objective-C? To call a function, you need to put the identifier of the function and put it in square brackets. I absolutely lost my mind when I had to do some stuff. Well, you're not even showing Objective-C there. You're not showing like the yeah, Lua. Lua is kind of like a PHP-like in a way. Yeah, this is like Objective-C. Just show me the image. I clicked on the image. Look at this thing. So you see, like, you've got string with format, first message, second message, and then you put it in square brackets to call the function. The rest is still kind of like the same. Swift has some kind of nice stuff. The bit of Swift that I did was kind of interesting, but like, it has a weird way of seeing stuff. Apple has kind of a stronghold on a lot of software that's developed on their platforms. So that means that they can actually just push whatever they want and it will be the standard, because it's really difficult to come onto the platform with something that's an alternative because it's locked if it's not on there. It's a little bit like Android, except that Android is a bit more permissive in what runs on there. But this is where, yeah, if you're not using a language that you can make bindings to Objective-C, which to be honest just compiles to assembly, so you can bind like C, you can't do much. The ones that come to mind are going to be obviously React Native, which actually no, React Native does not do bindings. It actually uses a bridge system where it kind of have like a server that is written, or at least interrupts with the widgets, the native widgets, and then your JavaScript engine, which used to be something, and it's called Hermes, a new version, would use a bridge like an IPC to talk to it. The one that is truly native in a way is .NET MAUI, which I did enjoy, but was a bit too new when I used it. But the way it works is actually really interesting, although this page is not going to show anything. But it basically has this, because .NET runs literally everywhere, it has this basically code for like interrupting with something else. I mean, the reason why React Native is not as bad performance-wise is because React Native does not need a browser to run. You can eliminate a bunch of the legacy from it. You can just say, if you just need a JavaScript engine, then that's fine. But yeah, there is still, especially since nowadays, I mean, when you talk about React on the web, you probably not, like, people, when people say React on the web, they don't say React on the web. What they mean is React plus the backend that goes with it, plus the first payload that's pre-rendered on server, plus the hydration step, plus all of the things that come with it, right? Yeah, no, I've looked at a bunch of stuff, but don't be impressed by what people say on the internet, including me, because I could be saying the worst shit ever if there's no other expert on the chat that can tell me I'm wrong. Why would you believe me? All right. Nice little chat break. Let me just do a bit of code and we'll see. Let me think. MP iter next with item. No. That's the difference, right? MP iter next does not exist because it's actually further down. And I just need to forward declare it, so it's going to be easier. Okay, so now I'm actually going through all of them, which means I can actually start with a size t, size equals 0, and then here I'm going to say size plus equal mp item length of end iter dot item. I think that's all I need, and here I should just have a catastrophic crash, because it should be impossible to have, you know, I'm going to do it here. I'm going to say return size, which here is going to allow me to just remove this. Right. So the idea there is, if the type is bigger or equal than 100, which is the map, which only includes the container types, then I need to initialize the size and just increment the size by the size of each of its items. If it's not a container, then just return the size. That should be simple enough. Yeah, I kind of select how many years of professional experience do you have. I need to rethink that a little bit, but I think I'm near 15, maybe a bit less than that. I started, I don't know the year I started. I know my age, and I know the age I started. Oh, but I don't know math. I don't know how to make the difference in my mind. Oh, actually, it's going to be a bit less than 15. I think it's going to be closer to 12. But again, like the professional experience that I'm thinking about, like, is just this internship at the beginning, which was not like super professional, but yeah. No, but if I was thinking about, but it's weird because it feels like I would have. Yeah, it's gonna have to be 12, like serious 12, and going on 13 soon, of like an actual job, like not like just an internship to like a work experience for a few weeks to just, you know, add that to your uni kind of thing, which was like legit working. Like this is where I did I was working for a company, was managing IT departments. Like it was basically doing they were doing the IT aspect and the remote help. They were doing remote help basically, but they were managing all these clients, and they had the calendar, and I basically made like a calendar UI, which is a bit challenging. It was like copying the Google Calendar from back in the days. I want to try MP item length. The easiest way to try it is to literally go and say this printf. I always do D because I never know the type, and then the LSP is going to tell me MP item length of root ZU. So if I actually say MP item length of root, it should be able to tell me the same number of bytes as what the website says. But actually I'm going to be off by a little bit, because if I think about it, when I count the items inside the container, I'm not adding, or the size of inside the container, I'm not adding the size of the header of the container. So I should be, if I have two objects, I should be off by 2 bytes. That's my prediction. So it's telling me 60, and in here this is supposed to be 70. So I'm actually off by 10. Let me see. I only have 2 objects there. So I've got this object that is here, and I've got this one. I could be off a little bit more because I'm probably not adding the byte at the beginning of every item in there when I do the size calculation. Oh, actually, you know what? I may be completely wrong, because how do I do the length already? I say size, and I do the size here. Okay, and do I set the size here? So I say size here. Yeah, so I think that's where I'm wrong, because one, strings, the size is actually not 1. The size is this plus 1. But that's where I'm going to start having some issues maybe, because depending on the type of headers, it's going to be difficult to calculate. I'll sort it out another time. Size 1 for nil is correct, size 1 for boolean is correct. Now the size for the int, this one is actually 2. No, it's 1, because it's everything packed into 1. Okay, so that should be one thing. Now I've got 21, which is way worse. Wait, just adding plus 1, switch to 21. Now I've got 60. Ooh, okay. I guess my recurse doesn't work because, yeah, my recurse doesn't work because my next doesn't work because I'm still relying on the other one. So I'm not going to be able to calculate the full size. That's the problem. So I need to do MP item length of and iter dot item, and this is let me think. I've got an iterator that currently looks at an item, and I want to go to the next one. And the way I go to the next one is to grab the size of the current one and to basically move it. But I've also got next here. And that's where maybe next is not something I need anymore, because technically size is the next I was looking at. But next is also what I need to do to look at the data inside. But to look at the data inside, I should look at the header first. Okay, let's do that. Let's look if next is used or not as a property. So I'm setting it a lot. I'm reading it to init. Which kind of makes sense. Maybe I need to keep next. Yeah, I would put it another way. So what you're saying, like whenever you see C, you feel like there's a lot of magic values. Whenever you see other languages, they are hiding the magic values. Is more likely, because whenever you use a computer, it's hiding the magic values. Because when you think about the fact that you start a program and you get given virtual memory, you're already being hidden the magic value of like the real amount of memory you have on your computer. When you do in a lot of the higher level languages, if you do web and you use JavaScript, whenever you do anything with like a variable size thing, you're gonna have something initialized with a magic value, which is gonna be a power of 2 usually, like 124, and it's gonna be incremented and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of that. Yeah, abstraction is just hiding it. But like if you were to do a low level stuff like embedded stuff, and you were to look at a let me see, if I go and get the 80 tiny 25 data sheet, right? You go get that, and then you go, okay, so how do I program for this, right? How do I just, because you can write C code and you can run it on this, and you say, okay, so I got these pins, and this one is a this one's a clock, this one's a 1. So these can be programmed to change a value to interact with the real world. How do you do that? Well, you need to figure out where the it's probably going to be somewhere in there. That's the inside of the chip. I'll find it here. You start looking at these registers. You're like, okay, so I've got these registers. It starts showing you like these. You see these? Look at all these magic values here. Why is this 0xf? Right? I mean, you could show them in an enum. It doesn't change the fact that there are magic values. But in here, you would definitely grab the address and just write to them. I mean, you would put an enum for like, but the enum is for the human. It's not for But yeah, I do have. I mean, if you look at here, you're right. There's like a bunch of magic values. And just earlier, right before you came actually at the beginning of the stream, I was like, oh, first thing I'm going to do is just put these into magic values. And then I realized that the logic of this line, I don't think I would be able to come up with a name that would be clear enough that anyone, including myself in the future, could read whatever name I'm going to put there and understand what I'm putting there. If I keep it as this number, at least whoever's reading it or myself in the future has to go, what's that number do? Like, what is it actually going to do in React context? I am going to do something about these, this one, and this one in the future, but this one I won't. And realistically, why I'm not going to do it here is because, okay, I'm going to say why I'm doing it here. I'm looking at the first byte of the data. If I see this exact value in the byte, right, I know this is false. It represents false on the buffer. This is going to be true. All the other way around, I don't remember. I know that this one represents nil. This one does not represent anything. What I'm doing here actually is I am comparing the 4 left bits of the byte. My byte has got an 8, and I only want to check the 4 first, because this is where the information is, because the 4 next numbers, the 4 next bits encode a different type of data. Now the thing is, when you do stuff with C, you pretty much, the smallest you're going to go technically is going to be the byte. You're not going to be able to just store a bit somewhere. So you can have a byte. Even your Boolean is actually just an int under the hood, right? So to be able to just say, I want to get like half of that, you need to do some bit manipulation. So what I'm doing here instead is I'm grabbing the first byte and I'm doing some bitwise arithmetic, and I'm saying the first half that is on the left, right, all set to 1, the second half all set to 0. And that's going to force the second half to 0 in this thing. So it doesn't matter what they have in the second half, I'm just going to set it to 0. And then I'm going to compare it to this value, which has a 8 on the left, which is going to be it's hex, so 8 is going to be like 0, 1, 0, 0, something like that, right? And if these two are correct, then I have, like, if this is equal, then I have compared, or actually I've checked what the first 4 bits of that byte is. The only name that I could think of for this would be MP bitmask map check, right? Because it's not a mask. I can't call it a mask because it's not going to do anything. It's not something that's called check. It's not something like, it's just not exactly that. One thing that I could do is, like, I think this is technically a little bit too much, and I think I could come up with an actual mask that when I literally just do an OR on it, it would then give me a number that is either 0 or 1, or 0 or anything else, and then it would just do, you know, something, right? I could make a function for wiping this out of the byte. Yeah, so I could, but then am I going to call a function for like this check? I know that like the compiler is going to eliminate that call, right? So I could just make it, but it's just this. This is, I think this is the second most readable that I can make it, or at least from my perspective. With the first most readable would be to do this and to say check first 4 bits, or a little bit more. That is probably going to be more readable than if I use a function and name that function, because this I can just make it as long as I want and maybe explain it. But now that I'm thinking about it, right, and this is just give me a thing, right, that I can write in. Sure, doesn't matter. Let me think about it, because if I have 8, that's going to be 8 technically, and then I've got some garbage or something I don't care about, and I want to check against this, and then it doesn't matter what that value is. Is there a mask I could come up with that I could compare these two values and immediately get a specific sentinel that I could compare it with, right? Because I mean, what I'm doing right now is I'm doing an AND on this, which is going to yield, that's going to be I'm going to do end, right? That's going to yield 0, 1, 0, 0, and 0. And then I'm comparing it with the hard-coded value of this. That's what I'm doing right now. And this is going to tell me yes or no. But I'm actually wondering if I could do something like I would have to do, I don't think I can do anything, because if I want to really eliminate that second half, unless I do this, okay, and then I do this, and I do, let me think, XOR. If I do an XOR here, then this would yield this. And then I can just check if it's exactly this value. But I'm still, like, maybe I skipped one operator there. But I also feel like maybe it's possible that the compiler actually has optimized that for me. Yeah, the comment is a good thing. But my thinking is if I could come up with a mask and a single operator for all the checks I need to do, I can then make an X macro for it. And then I would just have one and it would just check everything. I don't think it's technically possible for this because there are so many like variations between types that I don't think I can come up with one thing. The reality is, however many items this table has, I need to have one branch for each. And I may even need to have that 2 to 3 times, actually 2 times, because one is just going to be infer the type, and the second one is going to be how to read the contents. So that's technically what I'm going to need there. Yeah. Oh, I realized that I've got a big problem here. Look at that. I shouldn't multiply by 2 when it's an array. Multiply by 2 is only for maps, because maps have 2 objects per item, key and value. Okay. What was I thinking? What you're describing is very likely a higher level, because when compiled, there is no types anymore. The types are gone. Types are something that is made for the humans to understand what they're doing. As far as I understand, there's no types left. Like, you are comparing bytes. You're comparing like bits in memory. When I'm getting like a red squiggly line saying, "Oh, you can't do this," it's the compiler saying, "I don't know how to." Well, it's not even saying, like, you could actually maybe even edit the compiler, force it to compile, but you're gonna get really weird, unexpected behavior. But yeah, it's black magic and not. If you want to get into some low level stuff, and I don't know if this is a good recommendation, because obviously it depends person per person. But one thing that I think is interesting is oh, I've got the book. What's the name? What's going to be the name? I'll find the name. But it's basically a book about making a compiler. I forgot the name. It's a big one. But it's not like that's the one, crafting interpreter. So it's not a compiler interpreter, which is kind of like getting you in between the it's an in between of like actually knowing how it runs on real hardware and doing high language. But yeah. I mean, yeah, you can go to Claude if you want. Like I'm legitimately not here saying don't go use these tools. Like, this is not, I mean, if anything, there's just someone that just comes in the chat and just says don't look at my stuff, but I've never said don't go and not use Claude. You can do whatever you want. I think it's going to be very difficult for Claude to replace me because I am way more than my corporate output. Like, I don't know if Claude can replace my cholesterol level in my arteries. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it may replace my role within some corporate setup, sure. But like, I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to replace. Can Claude replace my lack of hair? I don't think so. That's my thing. Actually, Claude can replace my lack of hair because I don't think Claude has hair. So, okay, I got owned by Claude there. But yeah, anyways, I think this book to me was like extremely interesting. So this is all free to read online. But I was halfway through and I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to pay for like the actual book because it's like I really like the thing. And this book is in 2 parts. And the first part is making there's 2 styles of making interpreted languages. And it goes through the first style, which is the simpler one. In Java, you're correct. So it does it basically does a version without a bitcode interpreter. But the first, I ended up doing both half in Rust, I think. I ended up not using Java for the first one. But it really goes down to like explaining everything and how it works. And then the second half is doing it with doing like your own bitcode interpretation, like and some optimization. But the second half is in C. So you should be able to just see it. So it's quite long, right? So the first one is a tree walk. So it just goes through the normal like parsing the code and everything. But the second half to me is where it gets really interesting to bridge the interpreted language and compiled languages, because you make a virtual machine, right? So you are basically implementing what you cannot implement in the real world, which is like with your own hands. Like, you can't actually go and melt the sand and do the dye yourself. Like, you can't make the computer yourself, but you can actually simulate it. So by doing a virtual machine, and it's not like a VM like you think of, like I'm going to run a full operating system. It's a virtual machine the same way the Java virtual machine, the JVM, is, or the JavaScript virtual machine, because it is kind of a, JavaScript is kind of a, it has its bytecode and it also has just in time. It's a bit more complicated. But yeah, it's really interesting, and it goes all the way to making classes and things like that. And you kind of go at the end. And yeah, this was like a great time to just go through stuff, like do these chapters one at a time, like one evening, just doing everything. Not one evening, a lot of evenings to go through this. But highly recommend it. And what I ended up doing is you make this like fake language at the end, or like your own. And I changed some syntax for my own called locks. And because locks, this second version is interpreted, but you can still give it like system access. I used locks to make another compiler to basically stress test how good the language was. But yeah. General language understanding. I'm not sure what general language understanding, but if you mean understanding more code language and stuff like that, I don't know, because I think this may be on a per person basis. I think the reason why there's different syntax out there is because different people like resonate with different syntaxes in a different way. What it does for sure is that the things that are in common across all the languages that you do, which is going to be comparing numbers and storing data and stuff like that, it demystifies like the inside. Oh yeah, so understanding how languages turn syntax into actual binaries. Yes, that is literally 100% what the second half of that is, except that instead of the actual binary part, you're going to go into the binary for a virtual machine that you made. Because going to like actual binary, if you're learning, is going to be like a bit difficult to grasp. And if you were to make an actual binary, it would only work on like the one machine that you're running it on. You would have to like learn the actual assembly for like not even assembly. You would have to learn the actual binary for your thing. And without forgetting the fact that like if you're on Windows, you're gonna need to learn the kind of like the syntax for like the binary headers that the executor knows. On Windows, it has this, I think it's called PC or something like that. It's weird that it's called PC, but like, yeah, there's a table at the top that says, you know, this is where you can find stuff and whatever. And then Linux is gonna have a different thing, and you know, as much as I would like that, like when you execute a binary, it literally puts it in your RAM and then put the points your CPU to say execute this. There's actually way more to it. If, for example, you have libraries that are linked at runtime, there's a lot of stuff that's not. Since we're talking about some stuff, and I'm in a chatty mood today, I want to talk about one of my preferred projects ever, the Shat PS4 emulator. I spent a lot of time reading this code, recompiling and using it. And there is, I think, one of my favorite line of code ever. If I can find it, is probably going to be in here. Well, I think it's going to be more in loader. I know what to find. It's this one comment that I love, which is there is no coming back. Oh, they may have removed it. I'm not signed in, so I can't search the code. That's why. I'll find it because I do remember the. It's the linker, and it's not that far. It's here. There you go. There's no coming back. Absolutely love this line. Now this is a bit complicated, right? Because we're talking about like emulating the PS4. But the thing with the PS4 is that it is a normal x86 64 architecture. So the theory is that if I compile a program that doesn't make any syscalls on Linux, right? Just a program that just adds two numbers and dies, or like just nothing else. Technically, I could shove that into the RAM of the PS4, and I could point to it and say, go there, and it would execute it, right? That's the theory. And that theory, they move it to practice in the emulator, because what they do is literally rip the Blu-ray disc of whatever game or whatever program you want to run, find the actual binary, re-implement the kind of the Linux loader, so it parses the EFI format, which is the format of binaries, and it loads in memory all of the code areas, saying like this is a code that someone at FromSoft compiled at some point, right? Put that into memory, and then here it does a bit of assembly here, a little bit of assembly magic, and it just prepares the stack to be as if it was just called from within the PS4. And this here, this like $0 here, with the parameter being entry address, literally tells the computer, go to this address and run the code. That's literally it does, it jump there. And the there is entry address, which has been, in that situation, has been calculated to be where in the PS4's memory is the entry point of like the game that you're currently starting to run. And then this is where it says there's no coming back, because what this C++ program does there, right? When this ASM volatile is executed, it just goes away from this program. It just like disappears in there. And I realized that I kept on saying the memory of the PS4. This is an emulator, so it's loaded in the memory of the CPU. The actual PC, not CPU. But like when I was reading that, I was like, this is like the I backtrack for a second. As soon as I learned that the way programs run is you've got a bunch of bits in memory, and the CPU looks at one and goes, what does that mean? This is adding. Okay, I'm going to read these numbers and add them together and put them in this register, and does it nonstop. In my mind, I was like, okay, so one CPU architecture if there's two of the same CPU architecture, or if they're compatible, it means I could literally run the exact same program across everything. And this is where I was like, what is the problem between running a program on Windows and Linux? Obviously, the problem is going to be syscalls, because your program is not running directly on the CPU. It's actually running in the user mode of the thing backed by the kernel and all that stuff. So the syscalls are not going to translate, so you can't do that. And obviously, all of the I/O, which is going to be different, which technically is also a syscall anyways. So to me, it was like, oh, that's the boundary. These people working on this being like, no. There is a way for us to just literally grab a program that was made for another system. And I'm not talking just another system, like this can run on Windows. What's running on the PS4 is OpenBSD, as far as I understand. That's the base for it. So I'm like, okay. And they were like, we're just gonna do it. And they didn't like change stuff. They didn't have to recompile or whatever. It's just insane. I lie a little bit. Like they had to change. They do some changes in the code, but it's so minimal that it's as simple as these bytes in the Blu-ray disc are now in the RAM of my PC, and my PC is executing the exact same way. And when we talk about backward compatibility and stuff being compatible with each other or whatever, with software, new version of the API doesn't work with the old one. Imagine the insanity of the fact that CPUs have an API and that they have to be so compatible that you can just buy one or buy any machine out there and just put Windows, put Linux, and it's just gonna work in most cases. And usually when it doesn't work, it's not the CPU. It's gonna be a driver to some I/O, because as a human, you kind of need the I/O to even understand what's going on. But anyways, that was a long sidetrack. I haven't used it more recently. I think last time I used this was probably maybe like a year ago. But even a year ago, it was working so well and it's so interesting. The one thing that is different here in the way, because this is an emulator, and when you think about emulator, you think about I'm gonna fake the target system, and I use a software emulation to do that thing. And this doesn't do that. This literally says the PS4 has a CPU that has the same architecture as the host. I'm going to run it. That runs on Mac ARM as well, because ARM is going to use the Rosetta stuff to just emulate the x64. In that case, it is an actual emulation. Where it's not emulated is going to be the GPU. Now, this is where it's a little bit more tricky. I don't have it here, but yeah. But they also did have to re-implement, it's not error, but they did have to re-implement a bunch of stuff. Like all of the libraries that you would use if you were to use C++ or C on the PS4, they had to re-implement them in there. Yeah, software emulating is you would have a program that reads that position in memory and see a number and say, oh, this is the number to add, and I'm going to add them in software, which is going to then translate to your CPU adding them in hardware. While this literally just says, CPU does it right now, like do it right now. In here, there should be another interesting, see a game live streaming that's like emulated. I don't remember where it is. I don't remember if it's network or if it's in something else. But there's literally the API to handle the trophies. So you can actually see how the PS4 does trophy. You can emulate stuff with good performance. The reason why emulators usually have good performance is because they're emulating stuff that was from ages ago. And on top of that, the average, well, I don't want to say that. Not the average PC, but like the average PC of someone that's trying to do games is usually more performant than a console. So like emulating the GameCube is not going to be as terrible. The CPU, GPU is a completely different thing. I was literally reading something about how they made a shader so that the GPU can be the emulator for the other GPU. which was like an insane project to do. But yeah, so Shad PS4, the one thing that they have, the PS3 is such a different architecture that the people that were making games for the PS3 were having a hard time even making games for the PS3, because Sony came up with this like new way of doing the hardware that was obviously better, but it was so different than a typical architecture that like porting and just running stuff on it was not that great. So yeah, emulating is very difficult on that one because the hardware is atypical. But on Shad PS4, the thing that's interesting is how they have to translate the shaders as it comes. So as far as I understand, they can catch they simulate the AMD driver that the PS4 had, because it's an AMD GPU, and they catch all of the commands that come through the command buffer. And if one of the command is set the current shader to this, they're gonna get the bytes of the compiled shader for that AMD GPU. Because if you make games for the PS4, you're not gonna let the PS4 compile the shader. You're gonna compile it at build time and ship it, because it's gonna go on the PS4, not anywhere else. So what they had is they had to basically look at the I think it's called Rock M shader thingy. So the Rock M API for shaders or whatever, and they have to do a bit of a just-in-time translate all of the bytecode for the shaders on that specific version of the AMD GPU to what's the Vulkan SPURV. I don't know if you're supposed to say SPURV or SPUR5. This one, right, which is an open standard stuff, and then they can just translate every operation that comes through the command buffer into that virtualized GPU into an operation in the command buffer of Vulkan, and that's how they do all of the graphics. So in this emulator, the GPU side of things is slower than the CPU, because the CPU, your game is gonna run as fast as native on the CPU in this one. Anyways, long side, because this is the stuff that I like, so I don't really mind talking about it. But let's see if I can do some stuff there. But yeah, I did. I mean, I have rinsed Bloodborne on PC at 60 FPS. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that, but and this is not like the joke that a lot of people say when they say, "Oh, I ripped the thing myself. I've got a copy of the thing." No, I have a copy of it, and I legit ripped it from my own PS4. I had my old saves from when I got the game originally running on my PC. So I own the game, and I'm running the game that I owned. I did not download it. I even ran, what's the food game? Overcooked. But yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yes, but I did. Yeah, you're right. I don't really care. But it's more about every time I've used an emulator in the past, I may have had the game or not, but I downloaded it anyways. This one specifically because I was interested on how it works. I did rip it from my actual PS4 with the game on it, and I was able to like look into the stuff. And I ran Shad PS4 through Visual Studio with the debugger enabled, and I put breakpoints in addresses that I knew, and I was able to literally hit breakpoints at parts of the code base of the game, because it was not emulated, it was running on the CPU, which you could see a core stack, which is obviously not, there's no debugging information, but you can literally grab the .bin file, which is .binary, put it inside Ghidra, and then you can do the stuff. Yeah, so the PS4 does sign the games, yeah. So I don't know if this is like a... No, you don't have to crack it. So this is where the magic of computers work, is that if the game data is signed, well, it's not signed, it's like encrypted, technically. It's like encrypted, and there's a key on the PS4 which is specific to like your PS4. Like there's a bunch of stuff like that. But at some point, the game has to run. Right? You need to run the game at some point. So there's a point in time in existence where the game files are in the RAM of the machine. So you just need to scan the RAM and read it, and you got the game. You don't need to crack anything. That's how you extract the thing. You to actually get the game out, you need your PS4 legitimately starts the game. And I think that what they may do is that they overload the function that just like gets the output of the thing, and that's it. That exactly how I just said. The way you rip it is you've got a program on the PS4 that hooks into a function or whatever, and then they you can't. If you copy the CD drive, you can, but you're just gonna get the encrypted stuff. Like there's a thing that you can't really read, right? So you have a program that hooks into some function that is in the system of the PS4, and you launch the game. And when you launch the game, what the PS4 does is reads from the disk, decrypts, and load it in RAM. And that function that hooks into that is able to capture all the bytes that come through and just copies it. As far as I understand, that's how it works. I mean, there's probably a few more details. It may even be that it doesn't decrypt it straight into RAM, and it may actually have a partition or like a folder where it actually exports the game, and then you just need to wait until it's loaded, and once it's loaded you can just read it from there. Because if it was just from RAM, you wouldn't have the file system like stuff in there anyways. But yeah, I have no idea how none of that signing works. I mean, my thinking is that there is a... Actually, I don't know, because if there was a key, you would be able to find it if you have access to the system. Like if the system is rooted, because you need to root the system. That's the first thing. But yeah, I have no idea how that works. Not good enough for that. It'd be too mathy for me. Let me run this, see where I'm at. I'm at 21 now, which is not that interesting. All right, so let me see. MP item length. So this is where I want to check the next. Let me think. If I've got an int, the next is the data itself, because that's where the data is. Great. And then the size is 1. So what I want to get the size is that. I kind of want to see in here, I want to see what the size is. This is where I'm also wrong. The size is going to be... The size is always going to be 1. I think that's the thing, because you always have 1 byte. Yeah, I think my next is useless because it's always going to be 1. Like this one is data plus 1. Because that's where the data is. This one's data plus 1 because that's where the data is. And this one is data plus 1 because that's where the data is. Now all the one when I say it's 1, I guess I do need the next, or... Yeah, I've done some Go before. I think I did another compiler in Go or something like that. I liked it then, but then there's a point where I was like, it felt a bit bland to me. But I like it. It's nice. I like the pattern of like always returning an error and the data together, like as a tuple. It's a nice error management thing. But yeah, I don't think I spent enough time I don't know how long you need to spend with a specific language to really have an opinion on the language. And I personally, I don't think I've spent enough time with Go. Even though I probably spent, I don't know, maybe like 100 hours or something like that. I don't think it's enough. Like, yeah, I don't know. 100 sounds like a lot. Maybe 50. Let me see if I start my size at 1. If that does something. I'm just gonna stuff. Yeah, every time I go into something that I'm like it's like an unfamiliar area, I get this really weird thing of like, if I go back to my familiar area, I can get all of that done in like no time. It's all organized, like I can understand everything, and it feels really weird because you're like, it feels like you can't even do anything. But like passing through this is the way to go. And to me, it's never the language the problem. It's always the libraries, the how the things, like if there is any package management with the system, I think that there is a bigger difference between all the different package managers because they each have a CLI you have to learn than the language itself. But the reality is that most modern languages, you can't even start without packages. You need to start, you want to do something. Oh, it turns out that the STD, that the standard library for the language you want is a package you need to download, right? So it's like, you need to have the package manager set up. But it was so weird to me to be sold Go as like this functional language, and then you look everywhere and it's like, it's very much like the way it's done is very much classes and methods. Although C is very much like that as well, because like all of my functions is like, you take one thing in, and it's literally called self everywhere in Go as well. People usually call it self to just refer to like the thing you're doing with, but when I started looking into C, I was like, it's the same. It's just not as explicit. But I don't think classes is I don't think classes is really defined by having this being implicit, and having a function attached to something. I think it's defined by something else, because I think usually classes do come with inheritance. I don't think there's a lot of languages that have classes that did not add inheritance, which feels like it's the whole point. But I'm starting to talk in an area that I'm very unfamiliar with, so I'm not gonna talk too much about that. Okay, I like talking, but I'm gonna force myself to just do a little bit of code there. Hopefully, no one's too upset about that. Just do a little bit of code. Let me see if I can give myself a goal and try to get it done. My goal right now is, to be honest, with where I'm at and what I'm trying to do, I should be able to completely unpack the hello message from OBS. And my current goal is to make sure that I have an accurate size measurement or length measurement for items in MessagePack, for my own like item implementation. And currently it's not working. Now what's difficult with these byte stuff is that if I'm off by 1 in one of the item, what I'm going to read next could be the wrong type, and then my length is going to be completely wrong. I'm not going to be off by like one little one or whatever. Like right now I'm saying 22. Well, actually I'm supposed to get 70. Yeah. So that's where I'm off by a lot currently. And one of the problems that I have is that my length measurement relies on the iterator, and the iterator relies on my length. So obviously, until I get the thing like exactly right, I'm gonna be stuck. So I'm tempted to go and make myself a few more example things that I can Oh, I keep hitting escape because I think I'm in. There you go. So I'm gonna make one like this. I'm gonna make a message that I know kind of like exactly what's inside, and that way I can debug arrays and strings, and then I try to debug maps separately because I feel like map may be the problem. Also, oh, I don't have any array, so this should have failed if I didn't have an array. But yeah, echo-n, remove the new lines, put this hexadecimal, pipe it into XXD, revert from hex to bytes, PS, which is ignore the fact that there is no 0x and remove the spaces, if I understand, send it into data, and this was going to be str array. I'm going to just call it str array dot, I'm going to msg. It could be like .bin, to be honest, in this instance. And what's interesting is that I should probably, like, when I see test1 and stuff like that, I should probably just make it something called like an actual test suite, which could be interesting. So let's start with that. Data str array.msg. Now I'm expecting to not enter this, but it's going to go into length, and length is going to see the array. It's going to want to recurse. A recurse is going to say I only support map, fail. Can't recurse type array. I mean, if I can run the code in my head, why do I need a computer? Oh yeah, because you can do it multiple orders of magnitude faster than I can. Sure. Here. So this one is great because actually now I can use mp is container type. And we're going to say parent type, and I can do a little not here. So if it's not, I can't recurse this. If it is, I copy its items count, because if it is a container type, it should have items count and not size, even of the unit. You set the position to 0, and you initialize the first item being the inside of the thing. I do use non-interlicense, or I do use autocomplete. Maybe not in this project because all of the names are really short and I know them because I wrote them. But look at that, boom boom. See, I can get my little thing that tells me which one it is and stuff like that. I also use it a lot, and it might not be super clear in the stream because it goes a little bit fast. But if I was to say, for example, if I do, let me do this, right? And here it says, I mean, obviously, of course I have to do it manually, right? I mean, you're not going to let it write the code for you. Oh, you mean like triggering the drop down? Yeah. I don't want something that just like keeps on popping up, because half the time it needs a bunch of characters before the prediction to be accurate. And I don't want the distraction of all the things that is wrong. But here, for example, if I say code actions, it's going to tell me here, oh, there's an error. Do you want to include std int? I'm going to say yes, and it just adds it. So a lot of time I just do it really quickly, and sometimes you don't see it when it's like a fix that the LSP can do. And for the autocomplete in this project, I don't think I've used it a lot. But that's just, yeah. But also I'm kind of trying to, learn more. So sometimes even autocomplete sometimes just takes away from some of the stuff. Not as much as some LLM autocompletes and LLM like do the thing. Yeah, let's see what this does. So now I'm getting 5, and it says array. Now 5 is going to be incorrect, because realistically this should tell me that it is, first of all, it should be 9, but this should be 3 plus 3, but each also has an extra byte for its headers. So it should be 4 and 4 should be 8, plus 1 byte for the array, which is 9, which makes sense. So now the question is, which of the different types has got its size wrong? Well, first of all, could string have its size wrong? I mean, it's possible. I've got 2 strings. But if I didn't read the second string at the right position, I could have got it wrong, which makes sense. 5 is actually a number that makes sense, because maybe I go into the array, I read 1 byte for the header of the array, and then I read the first string, which is going to tell me 4, and then I stop there, because maybe when I did next, I went to the wrong thing, and it just stopped there. So it's possible, right? So let's see about that. Let's have a look at the length calculation there, and I'm gonna actually look at the size after each iteration. Size update, right? And then it's gonna be size. Like here, for example, I'm thinking about what you just said, right? And I'm thinking writing size, I'm not gonna autocomplete that. And if I had a drop-down menu that opened, it may have just distracted me a little bit. But it's just a personal stuff. But I definitely use it so much more on some other projects where some other languages and other platforms tend to have longer names for actions. The worst one probably being Java. Java has a really long name for stuff. And at that point, autocomplete is just going to be super useful. Let's see. Size update 4, size update 5. So it's interesting because what it did is it read the first string and said you've got 4 inside, and then it read the second string and it said it's just 1. So I think it mistook the second string for another type which only has 1. And on top of that, I need to remember that size is going to be size plus 1, because the container is going to have, actually the container may have more than 1, but when I'm just going to do fixed containers, I'm going to put it here, right? To do change this because some containers don't have fixed length. And fixed length is not the right name. It's just that they use the word fix here, and that's what's in my mind. Right, so iter next is going to grab the length of the item, and iter next is going to do the exact same thing. It's going to grab the length of the item, but the length of the item already is taking into account next, which it shouldn't in that instance. So I may have been reading the wrong thing, and now I get 9. Hey, okay, good. Before jumping into the big one, or should I be brave and try the big one? Let's try the big one. It's just changing one string. OBS hello. I don't know if OBS hello is gonna have some 70. Okay, is 70 correct? I mean, I don't think I'll be able to know because I don't have the OBS hello anymore. Oh, but I can just check. 70. Okay, so the length seems to be correct. So now let's have a little peruse through OBS. So ultimately, I'm just going to sneak peek into what I want to do in the future. In the future, I want to do a mp get at path, and then I'll do something like this: d dot OBS version, right? Something like that. And what this is going to do is do some kind of tokenization on the dots, and every time it sees one of those, it's going to assume, it's going to look and say, oh, what's your type? You're a map? Okay, so I should find a key that has the value d in it. Once it's find it, it then is going to return the value and then continue down the path. It's going to continuously go down, 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 down. And then what that's going to return is going to be an item at the path that I specified. So I don't have to just do a bunch of stuff. And this should have all of the code internally that just says, actually, you kind of were expected this type here, but it's not there. So that's a problem. Because the alternative to that is what I'm going to do, which is a little bit more complicated, because what you have to do is first say array, and I'm going to reverse this if because I want to. And if this is an array, I'm just going to do, print f you know, didn't expect type here. And it's actually not array at this point, it's going to be map. Because I'm back to using the OBS thing. All right, so great. Now, if this isn't, I want to recurse. And when I recurse, I'm not going to do while anymore because I kind of know how many items there is. So what I'm going to do is, at this point, I'm expecting a key of type string with value D. If I remember well, this is what the, let me just try that quickly. It's going to switch to my face, don't worry. There you go. Because it's just code that manipulates OBS. So this is what I'm expecting here. So I'm going to copy it so I have a reference. Okay, I'm going to put it back here. Right. So I'm expecting D, and then inside D, there's going to be a map. So here I'm expecting something with D. So what I should say is if item, oh, actually, you know what? This needs to be reached iter, which makes more sense. Iter dot type, no, item dot type is different from mp type string. Then I'm gonna have to do something like, oh, this I should probably return here as well. And I'm going to do something like this here. Now, because I'm doing this a lot, I'm going to start with a hashtag define assert mp type with an expression, an expected type. And this is going to be if the expression is different from the expected type, then I'm going to do a printf, and there I'm going to go a little bit more fancy with my stuff. Unexpected type, I'm even going to put it in quotes, and we're actually going to say expected type got and a second person s, and here I should be able to do X, and here I can do mp type, no, str type and mp str type of X. So actually I'm expecting T and I want X. So I'm gonna do this, and then I'm probably gonna do this and exit one just to be super aggressive, and I'm gonna say exit failure as a reference to what we talked about yesterday and stuff like that. So here I should be able to say assert mp type with actually I'm going to do the root one, root.type and mp type map. I can delete this, put it here, and then remove all of these. And this, if I do a hover, it tells me that the expense to root.type is different from mp type, expected, and exit. And just to test it out, I'm going to say array and run it. Expected array got map. It's working. I'm not from the US, no. I just yesterday there was someone that just like came up on the stream, and like the first question was like, where you're from and stuff like that. And you know, I don't at some point, I mean, it's like, I'm not going to keep it a secret, and it's kind of, you can guess it in a bunch of times. Like anytime my computer is going to be showing any date, you're going to, or time, you're going to kind of know the time zone I'm in, and you know, it's not really a secret. But I just yeah, I don't know. So nothing against the question, right? Like nothing against the, what you asked. It was just it's more of a, yeah, I know it's for you. It's just you've been chatting there, so it's not your first message, and the first thing you ask is where I'm from, like, and stuff. But it just reminded me of, like, just first thing you ask is where I'm from. It's just like, okay, like, I'm streaming code, and like, if I was in like the just chatting section, and I wasn't in a dirty shed, and I was obviously very pampered, and I'm presenting myself, and you ask me where I'm from, then I'd be like, yeah, maybe I would tell you where I'm from, because the stream is about me. This is not what it's about. But yeah, I'm not gonna make it a secret at some point. But it's interesting because maybe I'm hiding my accent well enough. We'll see if that's true. But yeah, anyways, yeah, and for clarification, it's I always said that I usually try to end my stream at 11 p.m. where I am, so it's obviously a bit later. Yeah, just introductory question. Yeah, it's just difficult for me to understand that in the current climate of everybody, including governments today, are trying to just know as much as possible about you. And when I'm talking to a human, I would expect them to just not do the same thing. And I'm not talking about like just knowing about you, but just the first thing is like where you're from and stuff. But I the more I think about it, and with your message, I'm like, maybe I'm just backward about this, and I just didn't think about it. But I'm getting a bit like, every time the thing is, in the past like decade at this point, every time someone asked about where are you from, it was always like a form online that was trying to steal your data. So now when I see when I see the stuff, is like, I get really protective. It's probably an overreaction on my part. Yeah, it's not really a big deal. I guess. Okay, let me flip it around. From my point of view, I don't think of asking the question, "Where are you from?" to people. Yeah, it's EU. It is EU, right? It is EU, anyways. But yeah, I don't ask that type of stuff. Also, because that question can be difficult to answer for people that are immigrants, from any like immigrants or people that moved around when they were a kid, for example, right? That can be a whole can of worms, right? Someone that the where are you from could be, if you've been in this country for 20 years, you kind of want to say the country you're in right now. But if you were growing up somewhere else, well, where are you from is a different thing. So it's always a bit. Anyways, I'm just overthinking this question. Anyways, it's EU, and what I was gonna say is, I usually try to finish around 11 p.m. So 11 p.m. here is obviously in EU is a bit later. That's literally the only time of the day that I have to like do stuff. So this is what I choose to do with my free time. And that being said, I also try to finish a bit before 11, because when I try to finish at 11, it usually just goes over 11 anyways. But I was just mentioning that because when I see that it's getting closer, then I give myself a little goal code-wise, and I try to leave some padding at the end for talking about next stream, what we did, or just chatting in general. Yeah. There's something, speaking of chatting, there's something I wanted to mention is, I realized yesterday that Twitch does not keep your VODs for more than 7 days. Like, I went in this streaming thing blind. I didn't research, like, I just said, I'm going to make a Twitch account. I started streaming. That's it, right? And I was like, oh, I still got my streams and whatever. And then it's like, oh, if you're just like on the free tier or whatever, not an affiliate, it's like 7 days. I'm like, oh, fuck. So like, yesterday I started downloading all my stuff. At least I got a copy. And now I'm actually re-uploading them to YouTube as well. To have like, whoever wants to watch unedited 2 hours of like this long thing, they can. But I am at some point, I am thinking at some point to either, if I think I can edit an entire like arc or project that I'm working on, like maybe this thing, into like a more condensed just code and the interesting part video, maybe I will. But or if there is like any specific part that's like interesting or funny or whatever that I think is funny, I might edit it into like a very short clip and put it somewhere. But for the life of me, I can't find any time where I would be like, oh, I have time to edit stuff now. Yeah, I know, but I'm not playing the thing. I'm not playing the because I feel like the side effect of that is that the people that you're gonna get from that is the people that came from the shorts, and they're probably not gonna be they might not be the people that you want to have on the stream. Like I would be happier to have 3 people more consistent and we can just chat about code stuff than have I don't want to say a big number, like even 12 that like the guy that showed up, and I'm pretty sure he's not there anymore, obviously, the guy that just came in saying Claude's gonna replace you, which he doesn't even know. Like, what if tomorrow they change the name? It's not gonna be Claude anymore. And what if Claude gets yeah, I know you're here. No, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the other guy that came in and said, you know, Claude's gonna boot you, you know. But yeah, I'd rather not attract attention from people that don't necessarily want to have on a. Yeah, but it's funny, and obviously I don't have a community yet. That's not a thing. But if I had one and there were like a bunch of people, I would have directed them to just ignore, and people can decide to do it or not. But I would prefer not banning and muting, because I prefer to have a written record of the stupidity of some people that did not incur any rage. Like, they were trying to get some rage, and if literally no one said anything, and I had just said, hey man, you can use Claude if you want, that person would have looked extremely stupid. Right? That's just my idea, right? It's just, but if you ban and mute, then they're justified in their action. They say, oh, they don't want to hear my message. You know what I mean? Obviously, people do what they want to do. And to be honest, I would rather have people in a space online where they can say whatever they want, and if they want to argue, they can do it. That's fine. The only reason why I would stop something like that, and maybe ban or stop stuff, is if it's just distracting from potentially the content or whatever. But this was just a fun thing. It might not be fun when it's just when it gets longer. And to be honest, just making jokes about it, like I could have just gone into like saying, no, it's going to replace me because you can't do this, that, and then it could have been a back and forth. But just taking the approach of saying, hey, I am more than just the value that like companies assign to my production, is literally tackling the question, because or the statement, because the statement was saying it's going to replace me, right? Which one, I'm not even working right now. So like what I'm doing would not be able to be replaced by, I wouldn't pay Claude to do what I'm doing right now, because that means I would be paying someone to do my hobby for me. That's stupid. But anyways, no, I don't think they're 12-year-old. I think it is a very sad realization, but that type of stuff being said, is it very adult people can say it and will say it. There are people that are hurt out there in the world, and they don't know how to deal with it, and they just, I don't know, they just mimic what they've seen. But yeah, but the fact that like someone shows up and says Claude's going to replace you, I'm like, okay, sure, but like, if you really thought that was the case, or if there was any proof that that would be the case, don't you think you would just wait until I was replaced and just not do anything? Like, it's just weird. Ooh, it's very fun. Let me just allow this. Your message got like stopped for a second. I had to approve it because you said junkies. Yeah, I was watching a video earlier about junkies. some of the relationship aspect and the how quickly LLMs are to just help you in committing suicide is very scary. Like, yeah, it's just, you know. All right, I like chatting, but I'm gonna try to just do a little bit of code. I'll do a bit, you know, like I'm close. I'm gonna print. I'm gonna print a few things, wrap it up, and then we can have a chat to some stuff that I want to do that. Yeah, I mean, the problem with modern models is that when you think about modern models, you think about the main company. A lot of resellers of models bypass stuff, and they're very scrupulous. If like everyone's selling you like an AI girlfriend, they're not gonna spend a lot of time putting safeguards. But yeah, yes, you're right. Coding, programming, writing some stuff on the computer. Yeah, I'm not going to do much. I mean, if I'm right in the length calculation is correct, and if I look at this object, it only has maps, strings, and a number. I support all of these, and my deserializer should be able to browse through this. So what I'm going to do here is first I'm going to have a char val. I'm going to say like, I'm going to click key, and then I'm going to do mp read string, because I know it's a string. Whoa, I'm doing the wrong thing there. Sorry about that. No, sorry. I'm getting double bamboozled by my brain. Iter.item with probably a ref. No, I can just do a type. Okay. And I want to read iter.item, and I want a pointer to it, and I want a pointer to the key, and this is iterator. And then now I'm going to do printf %s\n key, and then I'm going to remove all of these because I've got a copy somewhere else and I can just play with it and it doesn't matter, and that makes it really small. And there's a bit less nested level for now, so it's a bit more readable. And okay, great. D and then leak memory. Okay, sure. Although I don't know why I'm leaking memory after doing D, because I'm doing, I'm reading the key. Okay, so read string may not be happy. So let's see what read string does. It's possible that read string is like giving me a length that's just not. Actually, I'm printing just fine. Where exactly is the issue? It's malloc inside read string, but I've already printed D here. What if I remove this printf? I'm very confused there. And it didn't print the D. That feels like a race condition, but I'm not sure if address sanitizer has like multi-threading going on. Like it's just weird. Because why would it print and then tell me that? Oh wait, no. It's because okay, yeah, sorry. Everything's fine. It's just that I'm leaking. I'm leaking the allocated key that I'm supposed to free at the end. Of course, yeah. So I'm reading a string which is D, and what I should do here is then say if iter.item if strcmp of the key and D is 0, or if it's not 0, I'm going to do it here. I'm going to say printf expected. Well, actually, no. That's where it's different, because if OP was first, I still want to continue. So that's the thing. I don't want to kill the whole thing. What I want to do is this, and then go. I'm going to wrap that into a do while mp iter next of and iter, right? The key, I'm going to put it outside the do while because I'm going to reuse it. Although if I'm going to reuse it, I should probably just not do that and free it in here when I'm done with it. I mean, I could just reuse it on the stack, but not but free every time, because this is where I'm like not super comfortable with these things, because this is hiding a malloc, and I have to have a free there for each of those things that's hiding a malloc. And if I was to do something a bit differently there, what I could do instead is I could return a pointer to the start of the string with a length, and it would be the job of the caller to just do a string duplication if it needs to. But because C strings are null terminated, I can't really go in my buffer and add a 0 at the end of the string, because that byte after the end of the string is important data. I can't just overwrite that, which is, again, we talked about it 2 days ago, but like the sorting video about C strings was exactly this problem. All right, so if it's D, I'm going to do something like that. If it's strcmp key and op, then we'll do something else. But for now, we're actually going to loop through all of them, and I am going to also add an extra loop there. So this is the pattern that I think is not that bad. But the idea is my type is a map, and I know that if I use an iterator, every time I call next, I'm going to get key value, key value. This is like, you know, if my map has 2 items, I'm going to loop 4 times, and I'm going to get the key, the value, the key, the value. So instead of having something that just like branches on the type, I can say that first half of this area is going to handle the key, and everything after this iter is going to handle the value, and this one is going to move back to the next key in line. So after this, my iterator is going to point to a value, and before this is going to point to a key. That's kind of like the way I see it. So now if I run it, it should show D and OP. D and OP, because I've got 2 keys in that map, D and OP. Now, in OP, what I can do here, I could actually say struct, and this is where I don't know if I really need an iter for all those things, but oh no, actually I don't need to do this. Maybe I'll just move this here instead of doing it at the bottom, because now what I can do is I could first assert the type, because I want to make sure that this is a int. Another spam. Oh, I can't take this spam off without reporting it. Oh, I know how to report it now. It's really, really weird how you do it. How you do it? Well, I'll leave it. I'll sort it out another time. It's easier to do it on the computer. Yeah, I can just bam. I want to report it because I feel like it gets better at. It's interesting. It's always streamboo. It's always this one that shows up. I'm like, man, people must be really desperate for attention if they go buy. Yeah. I'll leave it there because I don't want to be distracted. I'll delete it. I'll report it. Banning is okay, but reporting is probably better, because that way they can do something about it. I feel like. But yeah. So I'll make sure it's an int, and then I want to read it. uint32t opcode mp read int and iter.item and opcode. And now I can do a printf. The opcode is, be very verbose, %d and opcode. So this is kind of like the this is like the experience of like consuming this these payloads is going to be, you kind of know ahead of time the structure they're supposed to have, and you navigate them that way. But yeah, it's just thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge viewer of Twitch, and I probably streamed more hours than I've watched Twitch. And I know nothing about the meta and all the tools around it. To be honest, at the size I'm at, I don't need to set up workflows and get rid of this and whatever. Like if it starts getting bigger, I'll probably look at it. I do want to try to see if there is a way, this is like related. I want to see if I can set up a webhook with Twitch that could tell me that the VOD is ready. And I don't know if you can automate the download, because then I would automate the download to my NAS and then maybe even automate the upload to YouTube. I know you can connect your YouTube account to it, but it would be an interesting project to do as like just a learning thing. But anyways, it's just made me think of that. All right, let's see what this does. Expecting string got map. Okay, it's because I am not I'm not moving the iterator when I reach D, so it doesn't get to the next one. Did I not write there? Next. So I get D, and then I'm not too sure about that. They have webhooks, but yeah, you can poll as well, I imagine. But polling, you need to have a state that you keep to know what's new, what's old. Well, I'm a bit confused there because I'm doing a next. Maybe it doesn't go in there. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't go in there. And yet the key is D when I print it, but the strcmp am I missing something? I wonder if there's stuff after the D. Let's try printf the strlen key 2. Oh, it's reading one too many things in there. D. So my read string may be incorrect. So string. So a malloc items count +1. So I malloc 2, and I copy next and items count. So I should be copying 1 byte from next, which is the first byte of where the string is in this instance. And at the position of items count, I set it to \0. So maybe items count is incorrect. We can try. iter item items count. Two. That is not correct. Oh, because items count is size now, which is where my problem is going to be, because I'm going to have to assume that my string has, I need to, yeah, so when I read data, especially stuff that has length like strings, I need to assume that items count is not a thing, it should be size. And size needs to be the header needs to be removed, and uint32t header, right now I'm going to hardcode to 1. Because if we look at the spec again, right, I support fixed string, which is 1 byte and then the string, but there's also string 8, string 16, and string 32, and this one's going to have 1 byte for that first header and a second byte for this, then this one's going to have 2 more bytes, this one's going to have 4 more bytes. So I will need to remove from the size, the header size, and add 1 for the thing. And item count is not correct either. The real size is going to be this minus header size for the actual string. Okay, let's try that. Right, now I'm getting some nice crash. Read string 143 heap buffer overflow. Yes, that's correct, because it should be size minus header size, which at this point I'm gonna str length, don't want to call it str length, I'm gonna say str size is item size minus header size. Because I've repeated this like so many times, I just wanted to str. Okay, and then str size here. I shouldn't bother myself with these things, but let's see. Right, is D, the opcode is 0 up. Okay, great. And then this is great. This is not the code I'm looking at. I'm going to remove is D, which I don't need. And I've got this. And then here, now, I should be expecting a map. So I see that there is a key that is D. And in the protocol, it specifies that D, aka data, imagine, should be a map. So I'm going to assert that it's a map. At what point I can start iterating again. Now I could either reuse the iterator that I currently have or get another one, but I think I'm going to get another one because I'm still looping through the top one and I don't want to overlap the states. So I'm going to make a struct mp iter, which is going to be the naming is going to be like really difficult because this one's going to be data iter, and then there I can do mp iter recurse, and I'm going to grab and iter dot item. So the item that I have is a map, and from that map I want to create an iterator, which is my data iter. And then this is where the pattern starts again, where I'm going to want to do a do, and this is where this starts to be kind of tedious to do every time. It's like, oh, you found another map, you do this, you found another map, you do this, you found another map, you do this. So you can either do a visitor pattern, like a walker, where you just say, hey, here's the function you should call every time you find a key value pair, and then that way you can do something that like recurse, or you do what I want to do later on, which is find by path. So all of this will be automated into a big loop, and it will just go in until it finds what it looks. But because I want to print everything right there, I kind of need to go through everything. mp iter next, and this time I'm going to do next on my data iter, and this is where stuff starts to get a bit repeated, where I want to first make sure that the data iter is a string, in which case I can read the key, and I'm actually going to reuse the same key thing, because I'm not going to it's not going to be an instance where in reality what I need to do is this, realistically remove this because I don't need it, but what I need to do here is I go into here and I can do printf, and I can say press an S, and no line return, that's the difference there, and I can say key, right? And then there I say free the key, and then this one's going to be a bit simple. I am going to do next. So I've now read the key of any of these keys in this object. It could be any of them. Now I know the order because it encodes it in the same order, but realistically it could be in any order. But they all kind of have like a string or a number. So what I'm going to do is here I'm going to say if, and actually this needs to be data iter. I need to be very careful with these because otherwise I'm going to read the wrong one. If data iter.item.type is mp type string, I can do the same thing where I just do this and I read it and then I print it, but this time I'm going to print this and the line return. If it is a data iter.item.type mp type int, because that's the only two that I'm expecting in this thing, I'm going to do this, except that we're going to change it a little bit. I'm going to say uint 32t val read an int, pass the val, and do a %d with the line return of val. And here, let's not forget to free the key every time we're done with it. Now in theory, what this is going to do is going to go inside this object, and for each key value pair it finds, it's going to print the key, a colon, followed by the value, and leak some memory in the thing. But yeah, so there it is. So that seems to be working all right. Now I'm probably, you see here, I'm mallocing in somewhere and I'm not freeing it. So I'm gonna quickly look at here and see if, yeah, so I'm reading the string here for the key at the top, and I'm never freeing it. And the problem is because I'm going in there and reusing the key, that's a bit of a problem. So I could do the stupid thing, but kind of the right thing to do, which is this and this, which is right after I compare it, I'm just done with it. And this doesn't crash anymore, and I can read the OBS Studio version and the RPC version. And then from there, what you can start doing is you can start making defines for all of those properties and say, oh, I want to get that one and see what the version is. And that seems to be working all right. Now, this is lacking tons in implementation, but I think this is like the first 80% for reading. Writing is going to be a whole other game, but for actually writing may be easier. But for reading, this is where we're at, and I'm kind of happy with it. But the last 20% is going to be those variable types, because realistically, the types we support currently is positive fixed int, fixed map, fixed array, fixed string, nil, false, and true. That's pretty much all of them. Now, when we go about going for like float is going to be a whole thing as well. But when we start going for those, doing one of them is going to be doing all of them. So it's not going to be too difficult. Same thing for these. I just need to figure out like the uint and the int. If I can simply just copy the bytes and then cast it in C, it could be super easy. Extension, I don't know if we're going to use it just now. String should be simple-ish as well, because we've got the header size already in there that we can play with. Array and map with a different size, we can probably look at that, and negative is an interesting one. But yeah, anyways, I don't know if we're going to support the whole thing. We may do a little bit of side trip to say, hey, what if I start using the library in the OBS client that we have, and can we actually use it today? Or is there any string that's like bigger than whatever you can fit in these 5 bits in size, which technically is 2 to the power of 5 minus 1, so 31. So if a string has more than 31 characters, we can't support it right now, which is a bit of a problem. But yeah, and it's a good time to stop there. we did a fair amount there. I mean, the first thing that was a bit of a difficult part was calculating the length to be able to skip through it. Like having an accurate progress through the iterator was a bit difficult, but that's that seems to be working now. And the rest is, I mean, this is going to have to be important when we have a header size. But the other thing that changed, the key pivot point in this stream to me was when I decided to say, yes, there's one item that handles all the types, but one of them is a bit of container type. And the first thing was moving those into their own number space so that I can easily say, are they a container or not, without having to check two values. And the second thing was using the union in here to say that they only take 4 bytes in memory, but they can have 2 different interpretations of what that means in that byte. One of them is going to be a size, the size of the data that they hold. The other one is going to be the number of items that they're a container of. One thing that I think I will need to add next is going to be the maybe the header size. Like I might actually store it in the object, because when I do that first pass of like initializing them, because I'm reading the buffer at that stage, I might as well just store how many bytes is in the header, so I can know what to do with it. That way I can have an accurate positioning of the first byte of the data that's inside, and I can also use that data to infer how I calculate its internal size, basically. So I may have a header, and to be honest, I don't think I'm gonna I just realized I'm not gonna have a header size, because if I make the difference between next and data is gonna be my header size, so I don't need any of that. Yeah, I don't need to worry about that. But yeah, no, it's pretty right. I mean, it's not a library just yet. Maybe tomorrow, first thing we do is just like move that into MessagePack.c and MessagePack.h. I'm starting to have the headers there already. I might do that, and then that's it. But yeah, I'm going to use my less convenient than a UI single binary to switch OBS. There you go, to prove that it works. And yeah, so yeah, final words. Thank you for people coming around, and more tomorrow. Just a heads up, because there's people watching. I will very likely take a break on not tomorrow, but the Thursday after, and the week after that, I will have an entire week off, maybe even longer than that, because I'm going somewhere and I won't be able to stream there. So there will be a bit of a break, and when I come back, I should have been re-energized, and well, we'll see. But yeah, that's it. All right, thank you for coming, watching, staying, and see ya.